Hi, how's everybody doing? Good. Okay, so tonight's presentation is called How to Get Your Product into Brick and Mortar. And I think the idea was that the people who are putting this convention together figured that there's a lot of people who have product that are selling on Amazon. Obviously, the Amazon marketplace is fast becoming a tremendous source of revenue, and frankly, it has the ability to be a business in and of itself for people who are manufacturing product. And I think the people who put the conference together figured that there would be a value in having somebody present the other side of the coin, which is brick and mortar. And I think, as we'll see tonight, I think there's some advantages and there's some significant downsides in selling to brick and mortar. My goal tonight, I'll be totally honest with you, I know almost nothing about selling to Amazon. So I'm like the last presenter that you would think would be here at an Amazon conference. The last 12 years of my life I've been selling to brick and mortar retailers. So my goal tonight is to try to take the last 12 years of my experience and my business life and try to condense them into 35 minutes.
There's 4 seminars taking place right now in the seminar rooms.
One second.
Reseller trend right now. How to optimize inventory is right in perfect balance. For Amazon private label, we have Joe Gold speaking on sponsored ads. For retail, we have Harry Cedardown on platform versus custom. And upstairs, in business development, how to get your products to the brick and mortar by Isaac Wolman. Please enjoy the seminar.
Okay, so let's get started. What I'm going to try to do tonight is really just give you as much as I possibly can from, like I said, from my last 12 years. I'm going to really try to pack it in. Everything that I know, every experience that I've had, I'm going to try to give you tonight. What I'm also offering to you is anybody's welcome to come over to me after. I have some lists and I have contacts within various retailers. If anybody needs help trying to get their product into retail, assuming that your product is in fact ready, I'm more than happy to share any of my contacts with anybody who's here. Really, just here to try to help as much as possible. So first of all, just as a thing, how many people actually have products that they are selling anywhere right now, sitting in this room? Excellent. Okay, so the majority of you. So at least what I'm saying is somewhat relevant. Okay, so I've been in the toy and gift business for the last 11, 12 years. I formerly owned a distribution company, so I didn't manufacture anything. For the first 6 years, I was only selling. For the last 5 years, I've been involved on the manufacturing side. I currently own a toy company that manufactures in China under the brand name Make It Real. This is a company that manufactures basically arts and crafts, stationery, cosmetics, licensed product for girls ages 7 to 11. We also manufacture as a licensee. We have a license with Juicy Couture, Disney, and Nickelodeon, and we distribute our product both in the United States. We have about 10,000 doors in the United States, and we also sell globally in 70 countries. So, first question is, so if you're selling a product, you're selling on Amazon, why should you sell to brick and mortar, right? You have an Amazon business, you have a reasonably good business, you're making money. Why should you sell to brick and mortar? So first of all, let's call a spade a spade. As exciting as Amazon is, 85% of all sales are still right at brick and mortar retailer, okay? 85% of all sales in the United States still happen at brick and mortar retail. So the second thing is diversifying your customer base is huge. I mean, wasn't there a session downstairs just on what to do if you get your Amazon account suspended? I think there's something like 300 people who have gone out of business because all of their eggs were in the Amazon basket. And I'm not, God forbid, suggesting anybody here is going out of business, but at the same time, diversifying is a tremendously important thing. Diversifying both, for me, diversifying means not having all of my eggs in Walmart and Target and Toys R Us. I think a perfect example is when Toys R Us went out of business last year. Toys R Us for us was 33% of our business. So you talk about the importance of diversification. I cannot stress it enough. The next thing is, it enables you to get your quantities in production up. Okay, if you're selling on Amazon, you're selling 2,000 pieces a year, 5,000 pieces a year, 10,000 pieces a year. When you're manufacturing in China, at the end of the day, when you're manufacturing in China, generally the quantities at the factories will give you the price break differentials: 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. So God bless you if you have a company that you can sell 50,000 pieces of a product on Amazon, but if you don't, being able to sell your product at retail is a tremendous ability to get your quantities up in production. The next thing is it allows you to get your product in front of customers. This is a very cynical way to look at it, but at the end of the day, you hear a lot brick and mortar retailers complaining that their stores are being used to what's called showroom. Customers will walk in with their phone, they'll scan a UPC, and they'll buy it cheaper wherever they can find it online. That's fine. You let them complain about that. But at the end of the day, if you have your product at a brick and mortar retailer and they showroom and buy your product on Amazon, at the end of the day, you're still getting the sale. So having your product in brick and mortar is a tremendous ability for you to showroom your brand. Because look, if you're on Amazon, the most important thing for you is how do people find you? If you're at retail, at least you have a fighting chance of getting your brand found. And now, so there's another really important thing that's happening here. Amazon increased year over year 13%. Walmart.com and the Walmart business increased 30 to 35 to 40%, something like that, year over year. Their omnichannel is huge. Almost all of my buyers now at retail are called omnichannel buyers. What does that mean? That means they're buying my product right now for both them and for .com. So for Target right now, my Target buyer is going to give me an order for Target for their 1,700 stores, and then they give me an order for .com. So and it's the same buyer. It used to be they thought it was a really good idea to split the buying teams up. You have one buying team that's only focused on .com, one buying team that's only focused on stores. It's not working like that anymore. I think 90% of the retailers that I sell to, it's one buyer, one strategy. Why? Because the .com business is so important to retail that they can't afford to have a broken consumer experience where you have people going into stores and seeing one thing and then going on to .com and seeing something else. They want consumers to feel that they can stay in the Walmart ecosystem and be guaranteed to find the same product for the same price at Walmart or Walmart.com. There's no differentiation anymore. So at the end of the day, it's not just, selling to brick and mortar, nobody goes to stores anymore. If you're selling to brick and mortar, you're also selling to Walmart.com, Target.com, JCPenney.com, Kohl's.com. Kohl's right now is doing 40% of their business on Kohl's.com. That's 40% of the quantity is bought for their .com business. And it's a huge deal. So the question is, can you afford not to sell to brick and mortar, I guess is the question. But, here's the but. There's huge risks in selling to brick and mortar. Huge risks, things that put companies out of business every day. The first thing is SKU rationalization. When you're selling to brick and mortar and you've got 30, 40, 50 customers, right? When you're selling to Amazon, it's very simple, right? At the end of the day, almost all of our businesses operate on the 80-20 rule. You're going to do 80% of your business with 20% of your SKUs. That's normal, it happens, and it certainly happens in the toy business that I'm in. I think anybody who's following toys or toy trends or things like that, you know that one SKU of a doll called LOL Surprise, I don't know if anybody's heard of it, you haven't heard of it, you probably have. One SKU of LOL Surprise in a major retailer did as much last year as 4 feet of Barbie. So at the end of the day, right now we're seeing more and more and more concentration in less and less SKUs. However, one of the dangers of selling to brick and mortar is that you can actually, because you have so many different customers and so many different customers like different things, at the end of the day, what you'll end up having is you have 60, 70, 80, 90 SKUs and you have to rationalize. Be careful, because at the end of the day, you're still going to do 80% of your business with 20% of your SKUs. The next thing, the importance of inventory management. When you're selling to Amazon, right, you've got one calculation, one retailer, one way to get the products in there. Whatever SKUs you decide you're going to sell them, that's sort of your game plan. When you're selling to retailers, it's really important. The concept of inventory management, which we'll talk about later under operations, is so important in terms of what you order and how you order it. Because at the end of the day, if you order too much, some crazy number I think I saw on Fortune, 30% of companies go out of business because they can't manage their inventory in this company space, right? Because they're overstocked on inventory, they bought too much, especially if you're in a trend-based business, it's terrifying. If you buy too much, you overstock, it's a very, very scary thing, and that really happens. It's a risk with brick and mortar. Financial risk. Okay. Right, we just went through this with Toys R Us, and it's going to keep happening. Barnes & Noble and JCPenney, it would shock me if they lasted another 24 months. And I hate to say it, because these are stores that we grew up with. I love taking my kids to Barnes & Noble, and JCPenney is like an iconic American brand, but look at what's going on with Sears right now. I mean, they may come out, they may not, sort of in some sort of ghost of what they used to be. They used to be 4,000 stores. It'll be a miracle if Kmart survives with 400. At the end of the day, we're looking at a real consolidation of retail. And I'm not going to give you the whole thing that what do retailers need to do to survive. They need to create experiences. Fine. Yes, no. I'm not here to tell you how to open up retail stores. I have no idea how to do that. But if you're going to sell to retail, only sell to retailers where you can get credit insurance. It's not tremendously expensive, but you must have credit insurance. Because at the end of the day, retail is so volatile right now. Next thing it's worthwhile having is recall insurance. Retailers can mandate a recall not just for things that are technically dangerous under the law, but retailers can mandate a recall for for a lot of different reasons. Having recall insurance is very, very valuable. It's not that expensive. I think we have something like $100,000 in recall insurance for maybe $500. It's really, really not crazy. And then you need to have the financial ability to manage your supply chain. If you go to Walmart and you get an order, can you fill it? Really? Can you really fill it? Can you sell them import with OA 60, with open account 60-day terms? That means they don't pay you for 60 days, 90 days. Target right now is mandating 120 days from their toy vendors. Can you do it? Can you do it? It's an open question. Everybody needs to ask themselves that question before you're selling to brick and mortar, because they don't pay well. They will always find a way. Chargebacks, okay? Chargebacks are a nightmare, because it's a profit center within the company. It's not even like you can talk to the buyer and say, I got a chargeback because we made an appointment 12 hours late and I got a chargeback. The buyer can't do anything for you anymore. You know why? Because there's a whole team that sits inside a major retailer, and their entire job is to come up with it's a profit center. In the company, they're reporting to their shareholders, we charged our vendors back $15 million this year, right? And some guy's gonna get a bonus for that. The buyer can't do anything. The buyer's not making any more or less money. The buyer wants to help you, they can't anymore, because chargebacks are a profit center. Okay, so I wanna sell to a buyer. Do you mind if we leave questions to the end? Is that okay? Perfect, thank you. I wanna sell to a buyer. How do I know what the deal is with the buyer that I'm presenting to? What's a buyer's job? So here's the first thing. The first thing is, so many buyers are literally a year out of college, maybe 2 years out of college. I remember my first buyer at Walmart, he graduated from University of Arkansas, and he was handed the toy portfolio. He was the largest girls buyer in the world. He was the largest Barbie buyer in the world. The guy was 12 months out of college. He didn't have any girls. He knew nothing about toys, okay? And this guy was literally making or breaking the fortunes of public companies like Mattel and Hasbro based on how much Barbie and Disney princess dolls he was buying. It's bananas, right? That's not to say that he did a bad job, and it's not to say that he did a good job, but just understand, a lot of these people don't have experience in your category, which I'm kind of starting from the bottom of the slide. But also, you have to realize, people think that buying is like this glamorous experience. You walk around at a show and your badge is turned around and everybody's trying to grab you and bring you in, and it's some sort of glamorous experience. It's not. It's a nightmare for these people. The biggest complaint that I've heard from buyers is that they spend most of their times now with spreadsheets, just trying to figure out what they can buy and how they have to move it around. And at the end of the day, the buyers are now responsible for managing the entire process, from the time they look at products to making selections, reporting every Monday. It's a very, very, very big job. It's a serious job, and it's a difficult job, and they don't have a tremendous amount of time. Buyers are also held responsible. You ship late, buyer's responsible for it. So at the end of the day, the buyer is overwhelmed, and most of the time they'll be stressed, but that's the nature of the personality that you're dealing with. Most of them are genuinely nice people, but very, very overworked. Many buyers are responsible for 3,000 to 10,000 SKUs. It sounds bananas, but unless you're buying, at a Walmart or a Target where your SKU is a little bit tighter, I think my Target toy buyers maybe has something like 500 SKUs or something like that. A lot of buyers, my buyer at AC Moore, 3,500 SKUs that he's responsible for buying and managing. So at the end of the day, they don't have huge amounts of time to deal with it. Okay, so let's go through this, and this is really important. Selling to brick and mortar is not by any stretch a universal experience. There are so many different types of brick and mortar stores. For those of you that this is elementary for, I apologize. I will run through it quickly, but for those of you that it is not, it's really important to understand the difference. The first is off-price. When you say off-price, you mean the dollar stores. Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, Dollar General, Big Lots. These are stores that are thriving in this economy. Stores that are opening more and more. And at the end of the day, what you're looking at right now is A, consolidation, but B, these stores are growing, and they're growing fast. Oftentimes, these stores are in places where it's not big enough for a Walmart. The stores are buying huge volumes of product. The second one is closeout stores, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Ross Home Goods, Gordman's, things like that, stage stores. At the end of the day, these stores, this is really interesting, because a lot of these stores do buy closeouts, and they're a place where you probably know them, because if you overstock for Amazon, you try to sell to those guys, whatever, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, a lot of these stores now are buying first-line goods. A lot of our product, we're able to sell a lot of first-line product to these stores at 20, 25% off, so don't discount them as as only closeout. Certainly if you walk into a Home Goods or whatever and you see all of the brands that you know that you would also see in a Macy's, it's just maybe a little bit changed here and a little bit changed there so that the vendor can have a straight face. The next one is mass market. So here we talk about the Walmart, Target, Kmart, Meijer, Shopko. These are the mass market retailers, and we will come back with a little bit more. And department stores. Department stores, I would say, are the stores that are really struggling the most. Some stores are trying to reinvent themselves successfully, but these are stores that are really struggling. And then finally, you have club stores, BJ, Sam's, Costco, PriceSmart, which is a South American club store. Their offices are in San Diego. But at the end of the day, every one of these needs a different strategy, and hopefully we'll try to tackle it a little bit. Okay, key to success. How do you get your product into brick and mortar? The first thing is, each customer has the thing that they care about the most. Know who you're selling to. If you walk into a meeting and you sell to Walmart as though you're selling to Joe's Toy Box, you will fail. And that's okay. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but know who you're selling to. Know what the retailers you're selling to care about the most. Walmart, what do they care about? Walmart does not want to be your largest customer, okay? If you're selling to Amazon and you're selling $500,000 a year to Amazon, and then you go to Walmart and you ask for a $5 million order, and they're going to be 95% of your business, they will not want to do business with you. Walmart does not want to be anybody's largest customer. The other thing, Walmart cares about price, obviously, it goes without saying. What was Walmart's big deal, by the way? Right? Why was it that Sam Walton was able to create a retail experience that nobody had created before? What was the thing with Walmart? And since, of course, people have copied this, to varying degrees of success, what makes Walmart different than anybody else? So the thing that Sam Walton came up with was Walmart would be willing to work on lower margins if his vendors would give him lower price. So everybody else was working on 50 and 60 and 70 point margins. Sam Walton said, I'm willing to work on 25. Okay? You sell it to me for 5, I'll sell it for $7.97. Unbelievable, right? He blew everybody out of the water. From a little backwater town in Bentonville, Arkansas, he blew everybody out of the water. Now, some people are able to do that, some people are not. They buy it in huge quantities, so price is a huge deal for Walmart. They don't want anybody else to be lower than you. And now, recently, they've become more and more on top of supply chain excellence and sustainability. If you make your product green, if you make it in the United States, anything like that can differentiate you, you'd be shocked how much Walmart cares about that. Something like they have these aggressive internal targets that they're trying to hit right now of locally sourced product. Target is a totally different story. The Target consumer is not the Walmart consumer. The Walmart consumer is the $60,000 and under customer. The Target consumer is the $70,000 and up customer. So you have Target doing all of this fashion-forward collaborations. My toy rep now used to be the buyer for Target's fashion-forward collaborations. What they did with Missoni for Target and Lily Pulitzer for Target, it was bananas. They would buy enough. They knew they would sell every single piece, and there would be people who wouldn't get enough. Right? Target wants trend. They want fashion-forward. They don't want to be the same as everybody else, and that's a really, really, really big deal, and they're very heavy focused on product quality to give that good experience to their customers. Dollar stores are extremely price conscious. They want to be purchasing multiple items from one supplier. That's a really big deal with dollar stores. And department stores are brand conscious above all. And they place a lot of import in their e-commerce, because at the end of the day, brick and mortars are shutting down fast. So unless JCPenney can figure out how to do 20% of their volume on e-commerce, they will shut down. So at the end of the day, that's a huge play for them. And then independence. God bless these people. Some guy, I don't know who wakes up in the morning and says, I want to open up an independent toy store in the middle of nowhere, but whoever those people are, there's still 1,200 of them left, and everybody's trying to sell it to them. But the one thing is they don't want to buy the same thing that mass market is buying, right? Well, buy anything, just tell me that it's not in Walmart or Target, right? Okay, that means for the most part that they're getting the stuff that Walmart and Target didn't want. Right, but now more and more independents are waking up to the fact that they need to be on par with trends, and so you're getting more and more independents that are willing to compete. Okay, how do I know if I'm ready for retail? How do I know if my brand is ready to be sold at retail? Okay, first thing, am I selling a brand or just a product? On Amazon, selling a product is fine, no problem. You can make a fortune with a good product. If you're going into retail and you're saying, I've got a thing, it better be a really, really good thing. It better have intellectual property. You better have insane sales numbers on Amazon. Whatever it is, it's much, much harder to get an appointment for a thing. right? Are you a company or are you a product? Don't go in with 5 one-off products. Go in with a brand, cohesive packaging, cohesive marketing message, even if it's not exactly the same thing. Really, 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 really important. Next thing is how good is my packaging? On Amazon, your packaging doesn't have to be great. You can do an incredible listing on Amazon with, by doing really good photography and things like that. You don't get that choice at retail. At retail, your packaging better be unbelievable. Why? Because you have a second. Somebody's walking by down the aisle, you have a second to catch their attention. If you blow it, if your packaging is not great, forget about it. It's not even, right? You have no chance. So at the end of the day, if you're going to retail, spend the money on your packaging. It sounds insane, okay? If I make a $2 product in China, okay? Out of that $2, 55 to 75 cents I spend on packaging. I have really high quality with high quality cardboard and all of that. Why? And it's ridiculous because at the end of the day, the customer's going to throw it away 10 seconds after they open it. But at the end of the day, if your packaging is not good and high quality, it's not going to convey that your product is high quality. It's going to convey that your product is garbage. Spend the money on designing and producing nice packaging. There is nothing more important in brick and mortar. I hate to say it, it's almost more important than your product quality because the product quality, they don't find out until they get home. I don't know what to say. It is so important. Next is my pricing competitive what's on shelf. Do me a favor, before you go in to meet with a buyer, walk their store, take pictures. If your pricing is not competitive, then don't take the meeting. Then don't go for the meeting. Because if you need to be competitive. And in order to be competitive, you need to know what margins your retailers are working on. And this is a really, really hard task. What you should always assume, unless you're selling to Walmart, always assume a minimum of 50 points. Your retailers need 50 points. If you can walk in somewhere and on the shelf it's $9.99 and you can walk in with an offering of $2.75 and $3, then at least you're starting at the point where you're differentiating. And we're going to get to a slide in a minute where you differentiate. So important. Make sure that your pricing is competitive. And then the next thing, do I have the ability, do I have the infrastructure to support the inventory levels that the retailers need? So important. You need to have, the retailer, the first thing they're going to say, right, what you're going to want to do, what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to sell them everything import, right? It's easy for you. You don't have to hold any product domestically. Unfortunately, for a lot of retailers, that's just not an option anymore. Retailers want backup inventory domestically. Why? Because here's the problem. This is a problem that everybody in this room will be able to relate to, most probably, if you're selling a product. The problem is that by the time you know whether or not you have a good product, it's already November 29th. Then what are you going to do? Right? The biggest, right, in the toy business, okay, and this is maybe not a good example for everybody. In the toy business, okay, we do 80% of our sales after November 1st and about 65% of our sales after December 5th. So at the end of the day, by the time you figured out whether or not you actually have a thing, it's too late for you to react in China anymore. So what are you going to do? So the retailers will set for fall, they'll set August 1st, they'll set September 1st. They'll look at the first 2 weeks. This is what Target does. You know what they do for their toy department? They set August 1st. They have this insane metric where they know if you sold 81 pieces on August 15th, you're going to sell 788 pieces on December 20th. They have this metric. They know exactly, based on the first 2 weeks in sales in August, they know how much you're going to sell on some level. The problem is even that, for the most sophisticated retailers, is really too late for you to react in China. So what retailers want is they want you to have backup domestic inventory. If you can play, then play. But it's terrifying because you may not have anything to do with it. You may be running to close it out if you bet on products that you don't have sales history with. So that's the question you need to ask yourself, are you ready for retailer? Okay. This is probably the most important slide of the night. The importance of standing out. Okay. Here's something to remember. If you remember one line to take away, no buyer will ever get fired for continuing with something that's working, okay? You're going to go in and you're going to present, unless you have something that's like unbelievably revolutionary that nobody else has, you're going into a buyer and saying, take them off, put me in, okay? In order for a buyer to take something off, they have to be pretty darn sure that they know what they're doing. You know why? Because if a product is working right now and they take it off and put your product in and it's a dog, if they do it enough times, they're going to get fired. Right? They're not going to get a promotion to DMM, whatever. At the end of the day, you better make sure that your product is good enough that the buyer is not going to get fired, which is why that's the reason why I have a Disney license. Disney's they're an incredible company, but at the end of the day, no buyer is going to get fired for putting Frozen product on the shelf. Nobody has any idea whether Frozen 2 this fall is going to be as good as Frozen 1. Nobody has any idea. I was just in Disney in California, and everybody's trying to figure out, what should we do with Frozen 2? Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? At the end of the day, no buyer is getting fired for putting Frozen on the shelf. A buyer will get fired for taking Disney off the shelf and putting something else on that nobody's ever heard of on the hope that it works. Okay, now, so how do you differentiate enough to give a buyer a reason to take something else off and put you on? Number one, price. Like I said before, go in lower. Beat them on price, and at least you have a fighting chance to be unique. Number two, license. If you can get a license, yeah, it makes a difference. Now, licensing is an up and down game. You need to make sure you got the right license. But a license is a differentiator. It's a reason for the buyer it's an excuse for the buyer to put you on shelf. Packaging, like I said before, please, high quality, high color, packaging makes all the difference in the world. Innovation is huge. If you can go to a buyer with innovation, with intellectual property, huge. But you know what? You don't even really need intellectual property. You know why? Because at the end of the day, I saw a guy down, I was in the intellectual property session before for like 30 seconds. I saw one slide and I agreed with it 100%. You know what it said in the slide? It said in the slide that if sometimes a patent's not worth it, because by the time you get the patent on the item is dead, okay? Consumers have a shorter brain space today than they've ever had before, especially with kids, but with any consumers. Consumers have such a short attention span. By the time a trend works its way through a marketplace, by the time you've patented it a year and a half later, it's not even going to make a difference anymore. Again, unless you found a new wheel or a new way to make pizza. That's, everybody's going to need to make pizza forever, right? Unless you found a new way to do that, if you've got innovation, you don't even need a patent, but it better be different. And that's what we were talking before. IP protection, if you have it, right? That's the first thing ever. Anybody here watch Shark Tank? Okay, you watch Shark Tank, that's the first thing they ask all the time. Kevin O'Leary asks, do you have a patent? Do you have intellectual property? At least it's something that gives you a leg up. Flexibility, the importance of a good supply chain is a big deal. And I'm going to jump to number 9 right now. Flexibility means, can you test? What does it mean, can you test? Buyers are very often going to say, even if they're a huge chain, they'll say, listen, I'll put it in 100 stores, case pack per store, case pack is 6, do you have 600 pieces that you can test? If you say, no, I can only do containers import, sorry, right? There's a lot less chance that you're going to get on the shelf. Flexibility is everything. I would say to any buyer that I walk into, take 600 pieces for free. No problem, just take it. Take it, I'll send it anywhere you want. 600 pieces for free. Flexibility, you want to be an absolutely no headache vendor for your buyers. Flexibility is huge. Marketing, everybody wants to know what you're doing about marketing. So it used to be 10 years ago, marketing was TV. When you said marketing for toys, it was TV. Everybody wanted to know, how much are you doing on Disney Channel? How much are you doing on Nickelodeon? TV was everything. Then for like 15 minutes, I don't know if anybody remembers this, for 15 minutes it was mommy bloggers, right? Remember this? Everybody thought like mommy bloggers were like going to revolutionize the way people purchase things. It was a bunch of nonsense. They were all reading each other's blogs, whatever it was. It went away very quickly. Now it's one thing and one thing only, YouTube. Everybody wants to know, what's your YouTube strategy? Now again, that's not like this for all products and everything is different, but if you can figure out a way to get 10 million kids to watch on YouTube or whatever it is, then you're gold, okay? That's what they mean, what's your marketing strategy? What's your go-to-market strategy? That's a big deal. And final thing is, can you guarantee the sale? Do you have deep enough pockets that you say to the buyer, listen, I'm confident in my product, you put it in, whatever happens to it, I guarantee it. That's a big deal if you want to break into a new retailer. It's right up there with guaranteeing a test, guaranteeing product. That's flexibility. It's the most important thing to give a buyer at least a way out if it doesn't work. Okay, now the big problem is, how do I get buyers to know I exist? It's a big deal, right? Because at the end of the day, right, we're I would say in the toys on Amazon, I want to say there's 4.5 million toys on Amazon right now. That's terrifying, okay? How do I get buyers to know that I even exist? How do I get them to know that as a company that I exist? Buyers very rarely take cold calls now. I hate to disappoint you. I would be happy to share my email list of buyers with anybody here, but buyers rarely respond to cold emails. They get probably hundreds of them a day. They just simply don't have time. How do I get them to know I exist? The first thing is trade shows. You must attend trade shows and make a good impression. You have a fighting chance. Buyers have to walk trade shows. They have appointments, but they have to walk because they don't want to miss the one thing that, that's going to be the next whatever, right? Whatever industry you're in, whatever, the next thing, they have to walk trade shows. Sales reps, this is my number one recommendation for somebody who's starting off. If you're starting off and you need an introduction, find a good sales rep. What's a good sales rep? Okay. A good sales rep, why do buyers need sales reps? Why do vendors need sales reps? So that they can forward your line list to them, they can forward your spreadsheet, they can forward your images, and for that you pay them 5% on $1 million? That's not it at all. What's a good sales rep? A good sales rep is somebody who has a good relationship with the buyer, has enough important lines that the buyer needs to pay attention to them. And basically, so why do buyers work with sales reps? Because it's one address where they can go to for all of their problems for 15 companies. So I've got 15 companies, 300 SKUs on my shelf. Anytime I have a problem, I want to know when something is shipping, I need a new line list, I need updated images, I need things for my e-com, anything like that. I go to Jeff, and Jeff handles my stuff, right? For all of these vendors. I don't need to remember, I've got 15 vendors and every 15 vendors has a contact list and you contact that guy for shipping and that guy for images and that guy. Forget about it. The buyer will just run a mile. But if you have a good sales rep who represents a lot of important companies, that's your into the buyer, because you know why? Because the buyer needs them. And if your buyer is going to they're guaranteed to get you a meeting. Huge is the most important way I would recommend to get in to a sales rep. And then there are retailers who are still old-fashioned enough, they do what's called OTB, open to buy days. What does that mean? That means you can go to their corporate office on the first Tuesday every 3 months, and you can set up shop. They have little tables, and the buyer gives everybody 3 to 5 minutes to run around. That's still a thing. I know BJ's does it for their, it's pretty surprising because you just don't think about it like that anymore, but it's still a thing. And by the way, there is a trade show. I'm sure anybody who sells to Brick and Mortar, you've probably heard it's called ECRM. ECRM is a trade show. It's a fortune. It's like $15,000, but they guarantee you 20-minute meetings with like 80 of the biggest retailers in your space. So they have an ECRM for everything. Funny story, they have an ECRM for wine. The buyers by the end of the day are like trashed. It's a true story. They have an ECRM for everything, and they test, and they do it's a fascinating concept. I used to pay for it. I paid for it every year. It was a fortune. You go and you set up, and you get the meetings, but if you don't have a way to otherwise get meetings, that is a reasonably good way to get meetings with retailers. Okay, tips for meeting with buyers. You get a meeting, now what? What do I do? How do I act with the buyer? The first thing is ask for less time than you need. Just say, listen, please just give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes, that's all I ask. I can do it in 10 minutes. I talk very fast, so for me it works. But even for you, just tell the buyer you need 10 minutes. I promise you, if they're interested, they won't kick you out after 10 minutes. Guaranteed. If they like what you're selling, they won't kick you out after 10 minutes. Ask for 10 minutes, you'll get 30 if they like it, I promise. Be brief, quick. Please, I beg of you, no 25-point PowerPoint presentations about your company and the bios for every single person who works in your company. They hate it. It's a nightmare, and they're gone. You know what the worst feeling in the world is? Tell me if anybody's ever had this feeling. You go into a buyer with a presentation, you give them you print one out for everybody, you give them a 20-point PowerPoint presentation, you give them to everybody, and you start on page 1 and with who you are. My company was founded in 1998, and right? And then the buyer's flipping pages, right? And they want to go right to the product. That will happen. Keep it super, super tight. Be flexible. If the buyer gives you an objection, don't fight with them. Agree with them and help them overcome it. Okay, like we said, keep it simple, focus on the differentiation and outstanding qualities, and say, what do I need to do to make this work? Okay? What do I need to do to make this work? If they start hemming and hawing, then you might have a problem. And then how do you know? If you want like a surefire way, if it's the first time presenting to a buyer and you want to know if you're going to be successful, ask them if you can start the vendor setup process. See what they say. If they're like, nah, not right now, right? So then pretty cool, right? If they say, yes, start it right away, I'll have my assistant send you the forms, then you know that it's just a tip. Most important, the number one most important way to be successful with buyers, the number one most important way, make the buyer feel like it's their idea. So if you come in with a blue package and they say, you know what, I think that's a nice item, but I think it could be in pink. For forever, every single time you talk to the buyer about that program, just say, we did it in pink just the way you said. We did it, we took your, make it their idea. If it's their idea, they'll buy it. If they feel like they're buying your idea, probably not. Make it their idea, so important. Okay, here's the boring slide. This is the most boring slide, but possibly the most important. Okay. Supply chain management is huge. One of the biggest things that makes or breaks companies is the lack of mastery of the supply chain. This is amplified 10% when you're faced with the challenge of retail distribution. Selling to retailers via import, it sounds awesome. Okay, that's great. I'll make 50,000 pieces. They'll come to my factory with a truck and I'm done, right? Selling to retailers via import is really difficult. It's not simple. There are far more requirements selling to a retailer import than selling domestic. Does anybody know why? Why is it that it's so much harder to sell a retailer import than it is domestic from New Jersey? Right? You know why it's so much difficult? More difficult? Because if a retailer has to pick up the product in China and import it under their own name, anything that happens at the port, anything that happens at the stores, they are 10 times more responsible legally for buying the product and for anything that went wrong with the product than they were if they bought it from New Jersey. So at the end of the day, if you're selling import to a retailer, be buttoned up. Your testing requirements are going to be much, much more difficult if you're selling to a retailer import versus selling them domestic. Selling domestically, though, what's the problem with selling domestically? You need to hold inventory. So if you need to hold inventory, try to get financing for your inventory. Even 20% on even 20 cents on the dollar. It could be a huge mitigating factor. Try to get financing for your inventory if possible. Investing in a good supply chain and planning, and investing in good supply chain and planning personnel is a tremendously good investment. We did not, in our business, invest in that for the first couple of years because we just didn't have the money. We were a startup. We felt it. I'm the sales guy in my business, okay? So I'm selling to retailers. I was also the guy doing the planning. Oh man, right? Tough. Really, really, really tough because I don't have a background in it. They have so many degrees now that people get from coming out of university with supply chain management degrees. These people are available. They're not a fortune. Invest in good people. It will be worth your time. And so, like I said before, testing is a big, big deal now. And also the tariff and tariff regulations is a big deal. So nobody knows what's going to happen on March 1st, but I can tell you that I have a really good friend who sells Christmas gift boxes to the Dollar Channel, and I will tell you their entire business has been upended, right? So he sells to Family Dollar, Dollar General, right? So if they're going to sell a gift box for $1, they want to buy it for 29.5 cents. That's their thing, okay? Suddenly they have a 10 or 15% tariff. Their entire model is out the window. It doesn't work anymore. So everything is now, it's a total panic, and it's a total disruption of the supply chain. If you have the capability of going to a different country, if you manufacture a product like a basic plastic or paper or product where the manufacturing process can be replicated in a country like Vietnam, Indonesia, those types of countries, explore it. It's a big deal because after March 1st, it's very possible we're going to be looking at 25% on everything that comes out of China, which will absolutely upend all of our supply chains. Big deal. But I have to tell you, I'm in the toy business. I have nowhere to go. There is nowhere that has the supply chain depth that China has for our product. It's terrifying, but it's something that's a very, very big deal. And I wish, nobody has answers on this because nobody knows what's going to happen, but it's a very, very scary thing. Finally, I'll just discuss selling internationally because it's funny because people just don't give this a lot of thought. The US is a consuming country. We buy stupid amounts of product. Like whenever I meet with Europeans, they cannot believe how much we buy in the United States. It's nuts because we only have 300 million people, right? There's 7 billion people in the world. We're only 300 million of those people, but we sell more of our junk to the US than all the rest of the world combined. However, there is still a meaningful market for product globally, and don't discount it. because it is possible to sell globally, and it is possible to diversify your supply chain by selling globally, to make more product, to earn more revenue selling globally. It's a big deal. The things to know, first of all, language sensitivity. If you're going to be selling in different countries, you should be sensitive to your language, to the languages that you have to manufacture. Testing differences. In the toy business, testing for Europe is an absolute nightmare. They have 10 times as many regulations that we have, and you should know that before you go into it. Cultural differences is a really big deal. And I just don't know what else to say about that. I think you can all use your imaginations for the train wrecks that can happen if you're not sensitive to cultural differences in different countries. And currency fluctuations. The best way to crack an international market is usually via distributors. Distributors, very often international retailers work only through distributors, and that's a very big deal. And trade shows are really important for that. So I'm done. I tried to give you everything that I possibly could in a very short period of time. I went through things pretty quickly. Anybody should feel free. I'll be around for another maybe 30, 40 minutes or so. Anybody should feel free. I'm happy to provide anything I can.